Good morning. I'd like to call to order.
We need to take our time with that. For sure.
I'd like to call to order the shared services meeting on today, January 22nd, 2018. Before we get started, I'd like to welcome all the new members, new supervisors, Mr. Loeb, Mrs. Hogan, Mr. McGowan. We have a lot of new members on this committee, and I think it'll only be beneficial for all of us with their input. So I'd like to have a motion to approve the meetings of our prior committee meeting. Do I have a motion for that? Supervisor Frazier, thank you. Do I have a second? You weren't there. Okay. Supervisor Loeb, thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Against? Okay, pass.
I abstain.
Okay.
I wasn't here.
You weren't there for that. Okay, that's okay. Thank you. Today's agenda basically is you should all have a copy in front of you. There was no new business. We had no referrals of new business. I think at our next committee meeting, hopefully will be in February, we will have a lot of new business to discuss. But I'm going to turn this over right away to our Director of Purchasing, Julie Butler, who's going to give this committee an update on a number of things, obviously our savings. And just for your information, she will be attending the February board meeting and giving the full board a short update also. So I'd like to keep everybody appraised of where we are on all the issues. So right now I'm going to turn this over to Julie, and there you have it.
Okay, I echo Chairman Beatty's welcome to the committee. In the agenda, I attached copies of the reports for each town or municipality. The first page behind the agenda is the total savings, which we reached close to $130,000 countywide. That's 450% over what our projections were. So we did really well. I think there's other areas, well, there's other opportunities, but I need some more feedback from the towns to maybe do some bids like the water treatment chemicals that the county may not buy, but maybe the towns do. You know, we had great participation, even though some things aren't reported on the savings reports. I think there were additional savings that we just didn't get the information on. What I'd like to do is offer again this year to come out to the towns and the the towns, the city, and the village to do refresher training or training of new employees. Get some more feedback because we have been we are a year into the program at this point. I think that was beneficial to everybody last year. I hope it was. And we can go from there and maybe improve things as we go this year.
Could I interrupt just for a second? For those new supervisors, Mrs. Hogan from Johnsburg, Julie goes out of her way to work with each town, the 11 towns and cities, to ensure that the people on board in your towns and city understand the process, but more importantly, how they can participate. And so her mentioning just a few minutes ago she's willing to go out and retrain or participate with any of your people in your towns is a huge asset. And what that then leads to, from what I've observed, was the more that they're comfortable in working with the county, the more they then start sharing information and so forth, and that leads to significant savings for not only the towns, but the county also. As you notice, $130,000. That's a lot in 1 year. That's a lot of money that your town taxpayers, our county town residents are now saving. That's significant to me. And so please, and I know we don't have all town supervisors here, but we do have a lot sitting here on the side, Mr. Leggett, Mr. Simpson, everybody. I strongly encourage you to do everything and anything you can to make sure Miss Julie is part of the program in your towns from an informational standpoint, so they feel comfortable to then share with her and say, hey, can you guys give me a bid on so-and-so? didn't even think of that, and she'll dig into that. So that's a real critical piece, okay, for Thurman, for Hague, for all the towns, is that participation. Because she can only do what she can do with the people that are willing to help her and assist her, give her information. Sorry, thank you. Go ahead.
Okay. The next item I have is to discuss participation and challenges. We've definitely got a great start, but I'm looking for feedback again from the towns. Is there a way for me to be more clear in my correspondence? I know I've heard from a couple that, what I send is confusing, and you may need more information. I'm certainly willing to figure out a way to make things more clear. I look at this stuff every day, so it makes perfect sense to me, but it may not to other individuals that are reading through it. So, certainly you can bring it up here, or if you'd like to call me and sit down and meet, I'm willing to do that as well. So I see that as the biggest challenge right now, and getting information back. Like I said, some things were not reported, I think, just because the towns didn't have the information. So maybe we can figure out a way to be able to track from one year to the next, so we can increase those savings on the reports. Any questions so far?
I don't have a question, but I did check with my bookkeeper before I left, and like office supplies, we can do better going through Staples than we can going through the county. And she said, like, we're a gold member, whatever. For example, she was looking for like 2-inch binders last week. Going through the county, they were like $6.90 something. She went through Staples, they were like $4 something. So that's why we have a tendency to buy an awful lot of the office supplies through Staples, because we do get a better.
Well, and we participate with Staples as well. I went through all of our core items, and I split it between W.B. Mason on our bid and Staples. So we're seeing savings on the county level. Matter of fact, our office supplies were down over $32,000 just because I went through and analyzed our office supply costs. So that's okay. I mean, if that works better for the town, that's fine.
Okay, well, I just wanted you to be aware, because I look at my savings not being that great, but I know we order an awful lot of stuff through Staples, so that's going to make a big difference here.
And that's state contract, so you always have that option.
Okay.
Supervisor Leggett?
Yeah, I'd say if we were more organized on our bookkeeping as far as our savings, the town of Chester would show better savings than what you would see to report at this point in time. For example, we switched to GA Bow through the contract and saved 2/3 on the price of our propane and various other items. So this year, our goal is to be able to establish the baseline. That's been one of the hindering factors. How much had we been paying? So we will get that on the record so that we can compare and see what we are saving.
Thank you.
But my question is, did you not say with Bow that it's not going to count as a savings because it's state contract? Am I wrong? Because we had the same situation as Craig did. We've had a big savings with our propane, but I was under the impression when I talked to you that it's not going to count here because it's a state contract price that we're going with.
Well, but you're still working through our office. Like, Craig called me and got that information, or asked if the county had a bid for propane. Well, no, we don't, but we know there's the state contract.
Right.
So by going through our office and us having the expertise to be able to give you that information, we would count that as a savings.
Okay, we didn't give you that information because I was under the assumption that it wasn't going to count because, as Craig said, we're saving 2/3 of what we were paying.
Right. It's not just about doing bids per se. It's about using the county to get our expertise. And by going through us, you guys are seeing these savings.
Okay.
So it's just the knowledge that we offer as well.
Thank you. Supervisor Simpson?
One of the things, I was wondering if we could do some kind of agreement, or formulated agreement, or relationship between North Warren EMS and the county for their purchasing. We, through the town, we have all the fuel come to the town that they reimburse us. But I had an instance in the last couple of weeks where they wanted to buy a ledger. It was about $70 if they had bought it, and it was $32 or $38 if we had bought it through the county contract. So that's what we did. But it seemed to me that it would be advantageous for us to check into the EMS.
And we talked about that before. There are restrictions as far as who can participate. It's got to be a fire district, town, county, village. Mary?
Just be a government entity.
Is that the attachment district? Because we thought that chapter at work.
It has to be a government entity. It can't be any non-for-profit to tackle on. They can purchase through you, but like Horkin Volunteer Fire Company can't purchase through the county. They can purchase through you like they do for the fuel, but you have to be the responsible entity to make these purchases.
I think there's only a few fire districts that qualify
Yeah.
to participate.
Yeah, there's seven in the county, 7 fire districts could. Can I just add my 2 cents? I think now that, at least in Warrensburg, we follow the purchasing policy religiously now. I have one person that does that. So you may not see a lot of the savings because we're getting savings now because we're doing it differently. And you're right about Staples. We buy from Staples. We check both places. Staples is on our contract too, but I mean, just in chemicals that she went and did for us, we got a over $1,100 credit on water chemicals because our supplier, and when Julie bid it, we got a better price, and we were able to get a refund of over $1,100 on water chemicals and waste treatment chemicals. So those are good things. I'm not sure we're going to see a lot of savings going forward if we follow the county bid specs religiously like we should be doing. I mean, right?
Well, through the efficiency plan, technically, we are comparing our current savings with the year 2015.
Okay.
So I know some of you can't go back that far, but even if we can show 2016, if you get your baselines, then we're showing something.
Okay.
No, from year to year, it's going to be minimal.
Right, because we're getting used
unless
to...
we increase participation and the prices continue to go down or stay.
But I do know that we follow it right. I have just one person, and all our purchasing goes to that one person, and that includes the highway. And I'd just like to say that we got on that national bidding program. I think, did you help us?
And JPA.
Yeah, JPA. We got on that, and we sold a used piece of equipment that my highway guy thought maybe we'd get 10,000. I said, we'll ask for 15, and we got 23 for it under the bidding. So I think it's worth its while to even have all the towns look at that. There's a little initial setup.
But it's free to join.
It's free to join, and the money was there.
And that contract is through GovDeals.
Yeah, government
The
deals.
county uses them as well.
So there's a lot of positives we're doing. It may not show up in the spreadsheet so much, but I think there's a lot of positives that are happening through this. And even I saw our fire district doesn't have any savings, but we buy the same that the town buys, and we just didn't keep track.
Well, and that's one of my goals this year is to further branch out into the fire districts, because I believe Bolton is on there.
Yeah, Bolton
The
is
city of
on
Glens Falls
Yeah, the city.
Fire Company. And try to bid some of those items that the county doesn't buy, but the fire districts do.
Supervisor Bramer?
Thanks. I just wanted to note that Julie is going out for the fleet bid, and if any of the municipalities need a hybrid car, you can get that through the bid. We're looking at possibly buying another one, but we want to probably get some more data before we do that again.
Thank you.
It's working out well, though, from an anecdotal perspective. Frank has informed us.
Julie?
Okay, well, we kind of just talked about number 3, improving the program and communications. And we also talked about any additional bids needed in the town, city, village, similar to water treatment chemicals. We
Okay.
covered pretty much everything.
So water treatment sounds like an area still of opportunity to me. The propane, well, your information on where to go and how to get that and so forth sounds like it's already working for Mr. Leggett, and also Ms. Frazier on saving on the propane costs. I'm not sure if the other towns or city have looked at that avenue, but Julie be a resource for at least the communication of who to see, who to talk to, and if not a county contract. Are there any questions right now from anybody in the room? You know, any supervisor or anybody else, just from the public? Yes, Supervisor Stroud.
Well, I'm thinking speaking for a few communities, and none of us knew anything about this. I mean, as far as e-waste goes, we got a low bidder, but that may not necessarily translate to savings, and it's not Julie's fault. It's just that, you know, it's an experience you have to experience. For example, you know, we bid out last year, and Evolution Recycling came in, and Mr. Bowman was very accommodating. What do you want us to get? He says, yeah, just get some 12 by 12 sheds, because you're not allowed to have any of the electronics exposed to the environment. They have to be enclosed. Weather. So, and that's worked out fine. And every time we have our two transfer stations that the city and the town both use at the Third Road and Ridge Road. And those 12 by 12 sheds have been working. And when they got near full, we called up Evolution Recycling. They came and picked it up. All we had to do was keep the CRTs, the flat screens, and the two TVs off to one side. All the rest electronics went elsewhere on the 12 by 12 building. All right, so the low bidder now, the DRI, Electronics Recycling International, huge outfit, and they have their way of doing things. They want everything to be on pallets, stacked 3 high, which now is about 8 feet. They want it saran wrapped. All right, and that's the way they want it. Bingo. Well, all right, we don't have pallets. We don't have a pallet jack. We don't have saran wraps. We don't have buildings or doorways to buildings that will accommodate loads that are 8 feet high. Nor, like I said, nor do we have the pallets, nor do we have the pallet jacks. So now what do? Do I invest in building a couple $100,000 shed that has an opening that's 8 to 10 feet wide, buy a pallet jack of maybe $500, buy pallets, maybe. So it's not always apples to apples. My folks at my transfer station said, can we go back to Evolution Recycling? I don't know at this point if we can, but Evolution Recycling was very accommodating. Maybe there was a difference in price, and maybe this is why.
Supervisor Garrity?
Yeah, I face the same. I only have one person at my transfer station, and he went down to Queensbury to look at that and went back to me with the same concerns, because we were storing ours in a small reefer, like trailer. Yeah, it wasn't a reefer, but it was one of those containers. I don't have the people to meet the requirements of this new bidder. We don't. We're in the same boat. No pallet jack, no saran wrap. I have one person, and before they would come and they would pick up the stuff. I think that the low bidder has put a lot of unless they're going to supply all the materials to the towns and extra help to package this, it's going to be difficult, I think, for most of the transfer stations if you only have one person running it, because he thought that they had to be at least 8 feet tall, the pallets, and wrapped, and he said, how am I going to do that? He's a lone ranger up there, you know. I mean, he doesn't have any help to meet this criteria. I think we better look at this bid a little bit closer and talk to him a little bit more.
That makes some sense.
I don't know what happened, what it was compared to compared to, did they not do it anymore, Evolution? Did they not?
No, they did, but they raised their prices for different materials. So ERI would be saving you 60% off your costs from last year. I am working with ERI to have them come back and go to each specific site to look at challenges. If they can't meet the terms of their bid, then we're going to be rebidding. And in the meantime, if you need pickups, we're going to have to go off bid, I believe, if we terminate with ERI, if that's what's determined we have to do.
Supervisor Merlino, then Supervisor McGowan.
That's what I want to add to it. I got called 7 o'clock this morning from my buildings and grounds guy. He was on Florida last week. Something else was an office they had over in Greensbury. He got the word on what it is. He called me and said, that's a lot of work. Can we get out of it? I said, well, it's 7 o'clock in the morning. I can't answer that question right now. But it's just funny. I got the same thing at 7 this morning.
Well, and I've heard from several towns, and I have no problem doing whatever the committee or the board would like to do. Just understand that your prices are going to go up.
Right.
I mean, that's going to be a result of rebidding.
Supervisor McGowan?
Yes, I can see why the, such a substantial savings in the amount of work that's being transferred over to, what all the towns and, has to do. One, an 8-foot tall, when you start stacking anything above the height of a human, there's other liabilities on top of that. But, my concern is, a pallet jack at 8 feet tall, a pallet jack is for one pallet. It's not for, any multi-levels of that, but I mean, a saran wrap with 8 feet high of electronics, to me, is one, is the liability. But two, one of the suggestions, being in some of the recycling businesses, in what I've done, you get totes. They're black. They come flat, big containers, especially like recycled plastic and stuff like that, and they fold open, slap down. You put them right on a pallet, and you just throw the stuff in there. And that might be something like Julie said, is coming back with a, say, look, these are our facilities. What you're saying, we're not set up to do that. And it's not like we're a huge recycling business. To do it, what we're doing is offer our constituents, our residents, an easy way to get rid of their electronics. So I would suggest that they, coming back and having a meeting, I would like to be present with them there to shoot some ideas of what I see and where we can save, and maybe might increase a couple more cents because they can supply because when they pick up, and this is what happens a lot of times, the pickup company will come and pick that stuff up. They come in, they load those boxes on, boom, they bring them to the recycling center, they get dumped and they get repacked on, and then when they come back they can drop them back off again, and then they're collapsed and stacked, and as we need them we can build them up, and that to me will be much safer than trying to go 8 foot high. So there's a possibility of being with, coming in when they're and negotiating some terms with them.
Ms. Butler?
I just want to add a couple things. When I put this bid out, I provide the storage areas, information regarding each storage area, and the amount of recyclables per year. And I called this company and I said, are you familiar with our specs? Did you read everything? Do you see that we are small facilities and we don't have huge storage areas? And he said, yes, everything's going to be fine. And they are at the point where they're willing to negotiate how we package things. They said maybe stacking 2 high instead of 3 high. So we're working toward a resolution. I just don't know if we're going to get 100% there.
Well, 2 high is too...
Again, Ms. McGowan.
Oh, sorry.
So when you contact them next, okay, I don't know if you're going to meet with them personally or via the phone, conference call with them on the phone. I would suggest that you have Mr. McGowan sit in on that. He'd like to participate on that. He may have some ideas. And if any other supervisor would like to just sit in on that conversation, would you, Mr. Garrity?
Well, my concern is, having a meeting when we can come. I know you had to leave the meeting to get to that meeting. The the problem I have is I'm not gonna do the work. My person's gonna do the work, so I think, you know, he's very, you know, I mean, change is not always bad, change is good sometimes, but I don't think that they really understood our operations. I don't think, I mean, ours is a container. We put them in a container. We don't have a lot of room. We don't have buildings. We put them in a container and it worked fine. Now they're changing a lot of things. They're shifting a lot of the labor
Over to us.
onto the towns. So the cost of that they're paying you, they're transferring all that labor onto the towns. There's opportunity that you got to bring a second person in to work that day when they come to make the pickup or package them properly. I agree with you. If you could do packages, but the trouble is, even in a container, you can't get in there to get these pallets out unless you have a forklift or a pallet jack, and that's going to be unsafe going down a lift. So right now, I think we need to call them back and say, we don't believe right now the way we're set up. And I think every town is set up differently. I don't know how you're set up in Luzerne. I know you have the elaborate store up there in Chestertown. You know, you probably got all this room and a lot of stuff, but we don't.
Still confined.
So I think we can all agree that we need to definitely, as Julie said, talk to them and change the parameters on which they're fulfilling the contract right now. And if they can't, I think the option is, do we get out of the contract and we go back to the old company, knowing that there'll be significant additional costs or more costs, the old company
We
saying
wouldn't be able to directly go back to the old company, we'd have to rebid.
rebid,
So
or
if we
rebid, thank
do
you, yes.
Again,
Yeah, well, we'd have to rebid. And so I think we're all in agreement. I'm glad the input from all the town supervisors, and I think there is a solution. Either they adhere to what your needs are, or we rebid, you know, but I think we're all on board that something needs to be done, and Julie's very good at doing that. Are there any other items that anybody else would like to discuss? Yes, Supervisor Loeb.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Under the idea, I know you're always looking for other areas for shared services.
Mhm.
The county has a tremendous pool of talent in our DPW in the engineering area. And I know, but I don't know to what degree, pretty sure that the towns, the city, Queensbury also, use the engineering services, or if they don't have the talent, they would contract those. There may be perhaps some opportunities for us to share our pool of talent with the surrounding communities to save some consulting costs.
That's a good suggestion. Not running a town, I'll open it up to former Mayor Diamond or Mr. Stroud. Would you ever consider maybe bringing or allowing county engineers to participate on a project, or?
I think that would be possibly open-ended to discuss. I think we may want to discuss that in detail with the new mayor of the city of Glens Falls. But anyway, they could probably, at least under my impression, work cooperatively with the community of Warren County, or if it's a town, it's very similar.
Supervisor Stroud?
Yeah, I think you need shared service agreement. You know, these are the kind of things that you can share, especially if you have a shared services agreement.
Thank you.
Really, I was going to ask Joanne, didn't we all sign agreements for sharing services, or didn't we not?
All but
When we
two,
went into
right?
that program.
Right here. Nope, there's all but two.
That was only for commodities.
Not for
We're
professional
only
services.
committed
Right.
for commodities right now.
So we have one for what we're purchasing.
But what I'm suggesting is that
Other
services, equipment, everything.
Yeah, I think it's Mr. Loeb brings up a very possible opportunity to take another step into this world we live in, which is we got to cut costs, and so we got to share services among counties, among towns and cities. It sounds black and white, but it's a lot more complicated than that. I get it, but I'm not sure what the next step would be. Would we, Julie, would
Yeah, the agreements.
the agreements?
Well, you may just sit down with the city's shared services committee and run it by and see what they're interested in.
Okay.
Have a committee.
Thank you, that's good. Supervisor Leggett, did you have your hand up?
Worked with some with the DPW for a project in the town of Chester, and I do know that their engineering department is pretty well jam-packed.
That's what I'm thinking too. I don't see how we can
They don't
expect.
have much idle time.
Okay, Supervisor Lowe?
It's, two things. One on what Jack said, Supervisor Diamond said. I'd be willing to help in any way. Based on what Supervisor Diamond said, is how would I fit into that? As far as,
Well, I think maybe if you communicate to Mayor Hall that there's an interest, and maybe talk with Julie to see if there's some type of interest there with their shared services, that would be at least a start, right, Julie?
Yeah, I think we'd have to find out the interest, but I definitely think you have to talk to DPW to find out
If they have the,
capacity.
right, the resources to do that.
and Mr. Chairman, the other point is, as Julie, Supervisor Leggett mentioned, X amount of capacity in the DPW. Services required, if we're talking about shared services, if we need to add 10%, it may cost the county as a whole, not just county government, but the county as a whole, less to have the county DPW add that capacity than to have individual towns. So it's something to, even though they're at capacity now, to expand their capacity, it might be a more economical way to go.
Possible. Supervisor McGowan?
Thank you. The other thing we talked about the other day in finances was the WSBCA. Is that right? Did I say the
Warren
W?
County, yes.
Warren County
Warren
SBC,
County, yeah, SBA.
SBC.
That and the sharing softwares for the
New World.
payroll.
Mhm.
I mean, those were two of the things that we talked about, maybe sharing that with, well, that was within the county, but the Warren County, that's PCA, right?
Warren County SBC.
Yeah. As a shared service for everyone, since we use, is that something we are looking into?
Yes, in fact, I know some towns have already sent over to Julie their contracts. The initial offering was, let's just take a look at all the contracts, let's see if potentially we could make it, there's a possibility to put out an RFP for a county contract. This is all, if, but I think the first step is getting the town's contracts in to see if we can get some type of commonality between them. Because I'm guessing that a lot of these contracts are going to be a little different. Each one's going to be a little different. So we got to get some basis for that. But the first step is getting the contracts in from the towns and the city, and then going from there. That would, us analyzing the contracts to see what's common, what we could, and then this committee deciding what we could put forth as a potential county contract. It's pretty complicated again. Because of all the different moving pieces, everybody's towns got their own contract. So, but it's a good first step. Supervisor Simpson.
Chairman, I would suggest that the first thing that really needs to be done is find out what the county is obligated to provide for service, which, what would be, I think originally this was for cats, and if I'm not mistaken, it wasn't for dogs in every town, because otherwise you wouldn't need a contract with your individual town for dog control.
Yeah, I think.
So then you need to find out what's obligated, what our obligation is, and then have the add-on.
Yeah, I think that discussion, that's a good question, but I think that discussion is after we get the contracts in, what does this committee and what does the board feel comfortable in, what type of contract they would want to put out there as a county contract, and what would that include? And that's not for me to decide for sure. That's for this committee and for the board to decide what they would want in a county contract. And that's something we'd have to hammer out, but I agree, yeah.
I think there's a specific law.
Well, there is.
We're responsible for dogs.
Right.
Each town is responsible for dogs, control of dogs. The rest of it fell to the Warren County SPCA on a county contract.
Did you just say the county was responsible for dogs?
the towns are
Right,
responsible
exactly.
for
That's what I'm
dogs.
saying.
Right.
So the county contract, the base county contract, there's an
Not for
obligation.
dogs.
Excuse me?
It's
Right.
not for dogs.
It's not-
The same as for cats.
Right.
And I don't know what else.
I don't think it's
Certain
about
laws.
cats, it's about all other animals.
All over,
Very
that's
good.
ours.
I think we gotta get some clarity there, there's no question about it, and I think this committee and the board.
Each community is responsible for dogs.
Right,
It's in the law.
we'll determine what's best for the whole county and whether we even go that route. But, the one other area that shared service we were discussing was, that Supervisor McDevitt and I have been participating is the new juvenile law that's gonna take effect and so forth, at least stage one, and, providing, separate, facilities for, juveniles as they won't be treated as adults. And I can tell you that I've had some conversations with Mr. Bob Busey, our probation director, as well as Washington County. And one of the areas of potential, one idea is, because this can go a lot of ways, but the schools throughout our county and Washington County and even other counties that are no longer schools due to the decrease in population and so forth. So maybe potentially using an older school is a possibility of having this detention, and I don't want to call it detention home, but I'll say it just because I don't know what else to call it, detention home. Because you have to have an acre of free space attached, there's a lot of laws, and the state came here about a month ago and discussed that. So that's another area where we're trying to work with other counties to minimize our cost, because it could be somewhat costly, but the state is going to participate in funding, a lot of the funding of that, especially for the rehabbing any building and so forth. So that's a positive. But anyway, Mr. McDivitt's been very involved with that, and I thank him for that. Are they, yes, Mr. McDivitt?
I think a number of us sat at the table with some of the state representatives, and concerned me when I asked one question to their architect. I said to him, "What is your average cost per square foot to kind of build something like this?" Some of the conditions, some of the issues that in terms of what the state wants. I mean, it's just sitting there thinking, man, this sounds really expensive. And I said, "What do you think your average cost per square foot is?" And I think the guy said $700 a square foot.
Yeah, 6 something, yes.
Yeah. Where'd you get that number from? So I think that created a situation where we, schools in, say, in Warren County that are basically have been, I won't use the word abandoned, but are no longer used, okay? Where they seems to have the criteria in terms of land mass, in terms of maybe an available kitchen, X, Y, and Z could provide Warren and Washington County with a reasonable cost per unit in terms of getting a facility done. So that was the intent in terms of something.
Yep. Thank you. And Supervisor, or Mr. Uzi has reached out to other counties, asking them, we've taken the initiative to reach out to Saratoga, to Clinton, to Hamilton, to other counties, saying, are there schools that are not being used? Give us your input. If there are, please send us that list. So he seems to be spearheading that from our county perspective. And I thought I'd just give you an update on that. So we're looking to figure out the best way we can to go forward to minimize costs for the county. Are there any other issues? Otherwise, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Okay, Supervisor Garrity, second by Supervisor Frazier. All in favor of adjourning, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?